What's up, everybody? I'm Scott. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty well. Today on the channel, I'm going to talk to you about how I approach dialing in a metal tone on a high gain amplifier. But before I do that, if you're new to the channel, thank you for joining. My name is Scott Bino, and here on YouTube, I like to make videos about guitars, amps, and pedals. So I do demos, shootouts, tutorials, things like that. So if you're into that sort of thing, you'll probably dig this channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Seriously, take your mouse, move it over to that red subscribe button, click that button, and boom, you're subscribed to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything, takes 2 seconds, and it helps me out. Seriously, I've now spent more time talking about how to subscribe to the channel than it actually takes to subscribe to the channel, so please subscribe. I'll love you for it. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate you. Let's keep this channel growing. Okay, so in this video today, I'm gonna give you 3 tips or considerations to think about when dialing in a metal tone on a high gain amp. But before I do that, I want to talk about some caveats. Seriously, I could probably talk longer about the caveats than I could about actually dialing in your amp. There are a million ways to do this. There's a bunch of other videos out there that talk about how to do this. This is just my approach. What I'm trying to do with this video is hopefully put you on the right direction so you can start to tweak and play with the tone to get it to the point where you want to get it. Everyone has their own process, everyone has their own way. These are just some of my strategies on how I like to approach it. Another caveat, your signal chain has a lot to do with your tone. Everything from your guitar to your pickups to your effects to your amplifier to your speaker cabinet to your microphones or impulse responses all have an effect on your tone. Seriously, I could talk for hours just about cabinets and microphones and impulse responses because that alone has a huge effect on your tone. But in today's video, I just want to focus on your amplifier. I remember reading something years ago, and I wish I remember who said it so I could give credit to it. So if you know the story I'm about to tell, leave a comment in the comments below to remind me. This person was talking about having the opportunity to play through Dimebag Darrell's live rig before sound check on a tour one day. They were saying how hard it was to play through because there was so much going on, there was so much gain, and they were just getting a ton of feedback. But as soon as Dime picked up the guitar, it worked. It just sounded amazing. It sounded like Dimebag Darrell. You know why? Because it was Dimebag Darrell. That rig was his rig. It was made for him, for his style of playing, his hands, his fingers. So just because you have the same gear as, let's say, your guitar hero, from guitar to pickups to pedals to amps to everything, it doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work for you. Depending on what you play and how you play, it's gonna have a huge effect on your tone. So once you've done your research and see what the pros are doing, see what other people are doing on YouTube, maybe even some of the stuff that I'm doing on my channel, remember, it's a starting point. Because just like a snowflake, you're unique and special in your own way. All right, enough bullshit. Let's talk about the 3 tips or considerations you might want to think about when dialing in your high gain amp for a metal tone. Tip number 1, use your ears and consider the end product. What I mean by the first part of that is tone is totally subjective. Seriously, I've had people comment on some of my videos saying they love my tone, they want to know my settings and what I'm using, and then on the same video, I've had people say that they think my tone sucks. But at the end of the day, if it sounds good to you, then it's good, right? Well, sort of. So the second part of this first tip is considering your end product. Generally speaking, for me at least, there's 2 different end products that I consider when dialing in a tone. The first end product might just be for me, playing in my room, getting inspired, writing riffs, and just having a good time. If that's the case, and it's just me playing, I'm gonna dial in a tone that sounds good to me, inspires me, and is fun to play in the room. So for me, that might mean bumping up the bass frequencies a little bit, turning up my gain just a bit to get it a little bit more saturated. Because what I'm trying to do at that point is make the amp sound big, thick, saturated, because I'm trying to get inspired and I'm just having fun. However, if your end product is in a recording and within the context of a mix, you're probably going to want to take a different approach. You're going to need to think about where your guitar sits in the frequency spectrum relative to other instruments, particularly your drums and your bass. As a general rule, I'll dial back my bass frequencies a little bit or use a boost to sort of tighten up some of that low end, and I'll also pull back the gain to reduce some of that saturation. Reason being is that when I record my guitars, at least my rhythm guitars, I'll be double tracking, which is how most people do it. Some people like to quad track their guitars, which is cool, but I'm honestly just way too lazy for that. And the thing is, if you're layering guitar tracks on top of each other, you tend to start to build up gain and build up that saturation. So if you have too much gain initially on each track, as you build it up, it gets really muddy, really messy, and you start to lose a lot of note definition. Tip number 2, you'll need to adjust the settings on your amp depending on what's happening between your guitar and your amp. Specifically, I'm talking about overdrive or boost pedals. Generally speaking, I think everybody should use some sort of overdrive or some sort of boost in front of their high gain amp to get a metal tone. Now, I know there's a bunch of people who are going to disagree with me and say that they don't need a boost or an overdrive. Their amp sounds just fine on its own. Fuck you, Scott. Keep your boost to yourself. And that's fine. Everybody's got their opinion. Everybody's got their way of doing things. I just personally love the sound of a high gain amp that has a boost or an overdrive in front of it. I find it just adds a little something to your tone that was missing. It gives your amp a little bit of a push, and it helps tighten up some of that low end, which really helps if you're trying to build a mix and have your guitars cut. It allows you to dial back the gain on your amp just a little bit and let the pedal do some of the pushing. Because if you push a lot of gain directly from your amp, for me personally, I find that's when things get muddy and too saturated. And if you do your research and test out enough pedals with your amp, if you find the right overdrive or boost pedal to complement your amp, it's game over. Tip number 3. Use an album or a song from your favorite guitarist as a reference. Now, I don't just mean researching what gear do they use and try and buy all of that gear and recreate their sound, because like I said earlier in the video, you might not find what you're looking for. But what I recommend instead is take your favorite song, throw it into Pro Tools or whatever DAW you happen to be using, and just start laying down some guitars in that recording session and try and tweak your tone to get close. It probably helps if you know how to play a riff or two from that song. And record it so you can A/B between the two and make a bit of a comparison. But like I said before, don't be afraid to tweak your tone beyond that, because depending on what your final product is going to be, whether it's an original piece or if it's something else, you might need to adjust that tone to fit with your actual style of playing. Also, don't get discouraged if you can't get your tone to sound exactly like the pros. Remember, a lot of these players are in world-class recording studios with tons of gear, and there might be a lot of post-processing going on after the fact to build that guitar within the context of the mix. So remember, you'll have the opportunity to tweak that tone with a bit of EQ, a bit of compression, to get it to sit within your final mix. But generally speaking, you want to get your tone to as close to the end product as possible without having to over-compress or over-EQ your guitar. Because guess what? Over-compressed and over-EQ'd guitar sounds like over-compressed and over-EQ'd guitar. Now that might be what you're going for a particular style or a specific part of a song that you're recording, and that's totally fine. But generally speaking, if you want an organic tone, you probably don't want to be fucking with too many plugins. All right, everybody, that is it. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, these are just my opinions. This is just my approach. There's a million ways to do this. Hopefully you found this video helpful to give you some ideas or some considerations to get you on your path to finding the tone that you like. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't subscribed already and you dig this sort of thing, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you've been here before and you're already subscribed, thank you for coming back. Thank you for the support. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember, stay safe and stay heavy. Peace out.